Hi, and welcome to lecture number 6, and it's to do with the element of water. What the reason for these videos is to support this book, The Easy Way to Learn Astrology. And it's not an expensive book, it's quite cheap, and it covers everything that you need to know to begin your journey into astrology. It's not exhaustive, but it gives you those first steps, which enables you then to lift off the platform and start to do your own research. So in here, you'll find everything you need. Nothing, you don't need to spend any money on this at all, except for the book. You can go to astro.com and you can register with them for free, and you can set up your database of charts, and you can actually get them to do the charts for you, and you can print them off, all this sort of thing. Everything really that we could need to begin the journey. So good luck, and hopefully you're not starting this right now, because if you are, you need to go back to lecture 1. But hopefully you know all about this already because you're on lecture 6. Right, we are discussing the element of water. This is the most complex and the most difficult of the elements to describe because it's mysterious. It's very mysterious stuff. It's enigmatic. And so it takes a lot of examples and a lot of metaphors and similes and stuff like this to introduce you to a concept that you probably may not have come across before. So, okay, well, let's dive in. So the first thing to say is that the element of water has 3 zodiac signs. There is a lower one, a middle one, and a higher one. So we have Cancer, which is all about the love of a mother for a child, or it can be a father if the father it takes a major role in the care. And then we have the next one, the middle one, which is Scorpio. Remember, the middle zodiac signs are always the most painful. And Scorpio's love is about the love of another, intense love, romantic love, sexual love. And so it's like an interpersonal love. And then the higher one, Pisces, is about a love for mankind, a love for the world, a love for anything that is transpersonal, beyond personal. Pisces sees things in a much bigger way, outside of the box, I suppose you could say. Right, so I want to go back to the beginning, and I mean the beginning, for our journey here. I want to just quote something from the Bible, and this is the King James Version here that I've got. And I want to say, first of all, that I'm happy to use any of the world's religions' mythology in an effort to explain issues and things in astrology. So I just as easily could be reading the Rig Veda to you, or just as easily reading some hieroglyphs or something like that. And in actual fact, the source of all things religious can be taken back to the eastern end of the Mediterranean, really, and India, China. But there was a huge pool whirling round for many thousands of years of knowledge about religious or spiritual things, and a lot of it was shared. So it's always difficult to know exactly where it came from, because as soon as we think we've got one source, then we find out there's another one further down the line. But anyway, so a lot of the things in the Bible actually come from Egypt. Egyptian religion was a major base for the then Christian religion, which was built really on a lot of Egyptian ideas. But they also took ideas from Zoroastrian, Persia, etc. So anyway, I'm just going to talk about Genesis, and I'm going to talk about the beginning, in the beginning. So we're told that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form, and it was void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Now, we've got there some key words as far as I'm concerned. The first one is spirit, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the element of fire. And we've got deity hovering over the face of the waters. And I'm going to equate that to the water element. Now, if you go back to the beginning and remember, we talked about the 96% of that is missing from our universe. We know it's there, but it's invisible and we can't interact with it. We're living in 4% of it. And I said that of the 96%, there were two elements that were the elements on the other side. And those elements were can supply or feed into an astrological theory or framework. And so the elements were fire and water. So on the other side, so in another dimension, or where whatever you care to believe is on the other side. So it could be multi-dimensions, for instance, or just a single nothingness, but energy, depending on what theories you hold. But so as far as science is concerned, there is dark matter and dark energy. It was interesting that they've got the two, because I can then say, well, okay, dark matter is water, but on the other side. So it's a multiverse version of water, and dark energy is fire. And that means we've got then the yin yang, we've got the masculine and feminine, excuse me, the masculine and feminine. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Hopefully that'll improve. Right. Yes, masculine and feminine. And it throughout scientific theory, we always have this yin yang thing. So we've got cosmic rays versus solar radiation. We've got the emitter and the receiver. We've got dark and we've got light, masculine and feminine. Okay, so there we have, right at the beginning, the presence of spirit and the presence of water. But I want to go a little bit further on and read you something more intriguing. It's still on the first page. So we're looking at God, the Christian God, the deity, and said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the water. Now, a firmament is actually a celestial barrier that separates the heavenly waters above, so keeps the heavenly waters above secured and up there because there's a barrier. And it separates those waters from the waters below. So the firmament is called a celestial barrier. So I'll just run through that again. God said, let there be a firmament, a celestial barrier, in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters. It literally says that. Let it divide the waters from the waters. So that is an admission that there are two different waters. One which is in above heaven and mysterious, invisible, and one which is below and on the earth. And then thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And so it was. And God called the firmament heaven. And then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. So there, from the feminine polarity, from the yin polarity, we have the division of the dry earth from the waters, below the celestial barrier, and we are aware of the water higher than that, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the dark matter and dark energy stuff, right? On the other side, the bit we can't see that's all around us, but we aren't able to interact with it. And it's based on this kind of spiritual understanding and this kind of spiritual text and spiritual evidence that I base my case for the astrology that I do. And that's why I place a lot of importance on the elements. And I believe that the planets and the zodiac signs and the houses in astrology all belong to one element or the other. And in that way, we can more easily understand their motivations. Right. Okay, so there's a bit of background on it. Now, what I want to do now is actually read you something else. And this is from an 11th century Chinese scholar. Of all the elements, the sage should take water as his preceptor, the most important. Preceptor, the most important. Water is yielding, but all-conquering. Water extinguishes fire, or, finding itself likely to be defeated, escapes as steam and reforms. Water washes away soft earth, or, when confronted by rocks, seeks a way around. It saturates the atmosphere so that wind, which is air, dies. Water gives way to obstacles with deceptive humility, for no power can prevent it following its destined course to the sea. Water conquers by yielding. It never attacks, but it always wins the last battle. Okay, so we're looking at one of the most, the most powerful probably element, but it seemingly is the most humble, and seemingly is the least invasive. Now, in astrology, the element of water represents our emotions and our unconscious sensitivities. It's supposed to represent feelings, it represents memory, and it represents the past. And the past includes the primordial soup from which this dimension sprang. So we've got the primal terror, the primal creation, and our earliest human evolution when we do arrive. We come from water, everything springs out of water, it says in the Quran. And lots of other creation myths also say that water holds the seeds, it holds the seeds of life, it connects us to life and all evolution. So water is a medium of the 96%, but it also has an equivalent in our 4%. In both, it flows and it connects and it mediates through its work, the work that it does. I can't say the substance of it, but the presence of it. Okay, now I want you to think about the origin of all things and think about also God inventing, if you like, or bringing this dimension into existence. And what water holds in astrology, the water of our astrology and natal charts, is it holds the memory of not just the ancestors, the mother, and going back 7 generations through the maternal line, it also holds the deep memory of life before this dimension, life as dark matter, if you like. And it has in its ancient memory all experience. Now, I believe that I'm going to just call this the Great Soul Lake. I'm going to say that there is a Great Soul Lake somewhere out in the multiverse. And when someone is born, somehow a tiny little piece of this soul lake is inside the baby. And that is that individual soul for the purpose of that human life. And then the human experiences all kinds of things. The soul is like a repository, and it has memory and it remembers. And then when that person dies, that piece of soul goes back to the great soul lake on the other side. And that is how life itself is always improving upon itself. And it's also how the other side, the memories of the other side, and whatever it is that water is representative of, and what it is responsible for on the other side, it is how the water within us is in contact with that. That in our deep unconscious, we are in touch with those primordial waters. And there is a flow that goes from our soul to that great soul lake, or to the other side, to the dark matter, if you like. Okay, now that is incredible responsibility almost, to think that we have that within us puts us in a place of, well, importance, I think might be the thing. But also it explains a lot about what we're here for, what life is all about. It just puts us everything into some kind of perspective. It puts jigsaw pieces down in the jigsaw. So now in human eggs and human semen. So when we get these two things together, they both carry a genetic code, and that code, that DNA, forms the next baby. So this is how, and this is in water, don't forget, sperm and the moistness of the womb. So this is how we are. That continues, this memory continues through the generations. So because water has a mysterious memory and carries the past and the origins, this occurs through all things. It's not just the genes of your great grandmother. It's also going back into prehistory. So with the energies of water in our charts, bringing it all up to date, when we get into the water in our charts, we are getting into the past. We are looking at the past and how that past it has brought us to this place. We're looking at the memories and how the memories influence us, inform us, and give us the history that we have. So the fire in our chart gives us our forward thinking. It tells us about the future and what we will come into. Everything about fire is the future, it's masculine. Everything about water is to do with the past. It is feminine, and it holds so much of all memory. So with the water in our charts, we feel love and desire. We're talking about our strong feelings. Even if you think about it, tears, right? When we're crying with sadness, they come in. They are water. Water just is so completely available and is so much the basis of our lives, so completely all about us. We are made mainly of water, as you know. So its importance cannot be overstated. It has a massive importance, and yet it's just water. We turn on a tap and it comes out. We are born with emotions. We have the same sort of there's an internal reservoir of our emotions, just as there is an internal water tank in the house. And We're born with that emotion, with that water inside of us. And that is what fuels us when it comes to love, desire, sexual attraction, the need to reproduce, to relate, copulate, and reproduce. This is all driven by water. So water is indeed carrying life because it's the water that achieves the provision of extension of life, that life begets life begets life, because of the sexual act. And how that water is the medium which carries everything through and forward. So, emotions are involved in the selection of sexual partners, relationships, parent-child bonds, and it's that bond which keeps the parent in love with the child, which keeps the parent protecting the child. In the view, it doesn't matter what happens, the child has to be protected. And it's such a mysterious element for that. It carries the family karma. So there are water houses in astrology and the water planets which can tell us about the karma in the family. And that, that it's so mysterious, and it gets quite incredible when we start to be able to read it in astrology. There is just something I could tell you, just a snippet about this, about water and selection and DNA and epigenetics. There was a report, and I'm just going to I need to read this. There was a report in New Scientist in 2010 which did some research on female birds, and it shows that their bodies will alter the testosterone content of the yolk of an egg to decide the hatching order of the chicks. And this is all done within water. And this type of influence increases dramatically when the mother grows the baby within her own body instead of laying an egg. And so it is likely that the mother's body carrying the baby unconsciously and informed by water and the matriarchal lineage is having an influence on that egg. So I'll just go back to reading this. The code of life, which tells the cell and the emerging organism what to become. And this information does seem to come from both parents. But then the egg, which is so much bigger, does more. Something called epigenetics comes into play. This is a mysterious process that seems to come from the family memory, and it holds the information about the maternal line and its origins. Epigenetic effects, called genomic imprinting, are passed on through the generations by the matriarchal inheritance in the egg. The sperm isn't entirely helpless, and it does have an effect, it does contribute, but maybe only as much as the female will allow. And that's not the female consciousness, that's the female genetics will allow. And then there's a quote here that, from Monahan P. In New Scientist in 2010. The maternal control of growth and development has some fascinating implications. It means that for many of the traits important to the mating game, such as body size and brain function, the father's genes might not be as influential as the mother's. What females could really be after when they choose the sperm of one male over another is the male whose genes they can most easily manipulate behind the scenes. There we go. Okay, so what we're actually talking about now is the strength of water, the element of water, its responsibility, and the huge role that it takes in reproduction. And that's reproduction in so many things, not just humans, it's all animals. And it's even when you think about it, if we're reproducing tomato plants, you just, there's all kinds of sort of thoughts and things that you can just spin off with on this. It's just, such amazing information. So what can happen in astrology is that something that is in the family line, a certain trait, right? So let's say a child is born out of wedlock, right? And it's 200 years ago. Right. That can reoccur, that same thing can reoccur over and over again as a basic family pattern. Or you can get sibling rivalry or the early death of parents. Anything that seems to occur to people can reappear in many of the generations that follow. And I think that sort of examining this and looking at it in spiritual terms, I think we could say that this happens because it can be healed further down the line. It comes up again, and a new baby this time is having another grapple with it. A new baby has to once more live its life managing or dealing with or trying to heal whatever the issue is. And that's very much what water is all about in the astrological chart, taking the past and re-looking at it, managing it, and trying to turn it into something which provides wisdom, healing, and then that way we see an improvement in wisdom. The emotions are being used to work with something to improve the general approach to it. And don't forget, when the soul dies, in the human, it goes back to that great soul lake and it improves the quality of the whole thing. Okay, so we also, I'll just cover this last thing. We also store memories of our own personal experience in the water in our astrological charts. So I'm just going to take a small example. So a baby is born, and what we need to do is immediately get that baby to the breast of the mother, because the baby from that moment coming out of the birth canal is aware, is being imprinted by the love that exists in the birthing room for the baby by the mother and father if he's there. That bonding is so important. And it's important because that's how the baby will learn how to behave itself when it has babies. That is the amazing magical imprinting of this. And also when the mother is holding, on the father, if he is very active, when the mother is holding the baby, it is in its first hours, its first days, the baby is learning on a massive scale via the water in itself, the astrological element of water. It's storing all that information, and that is where it is learning to kiss and hug and love and cuddle and feel contented and secure. That's what it's learning to do. It learns that before it learns to speak. It learns to hold and be held and feel the warmth before anything else. And it's all down to the water. And it's the memory in the water that comes through the generations that supplies the knowledge of that. And so the mother will react as she was treated, and so on and so forth. And it just goes on. Right. So that is quite some story that I've given you there. I'm not going to, in this video, I'm not going to now repeat all the things that are in the book. What I've covered there is something that I don't think is in the book. I don't remember writing all that lot anyway. I haven't read it for a while. But so take that information and then look at the chapter to do with water and read further on that. What I've tried to do with this video is just give you the sheer importance and the history and the background of this amazing, magical, immense element, and show its importance. I cannot overstate the importance. If you look at it as like a base element, as the Chinese scholar there did, and you can see then that fire, the spirit of God, fire, hovers over the waters, as it says. So it is that the masculine coming to impregnate the feminine, the waters, that gives us the fecundity, gives us the sudden springing into life. The sun, representing fire, warms the waters and stirs it into life. Without that heat from fire, the water remains inert, waiting. So it's heavy with fecundity, waiting to be impregnated, but it waits. So first of all, I think there is right at the beginning, before this dimension burst into existence, I think water, darkness, was the first primordial essence, and spirit, energy, fire happened to it. And that from that bursts the life that we know, and the life that the other lives and outside of ours in other dimensions. Right, okay, that's very philosophical, that lot, wasn't it? I mean, like, okay, you'll learn astrology if you don't remember all that. Don't worry about that, It was just if you're interested. It's like, well, it was very complicated. Okay, well, anyway, I hope it was useful. Thank you very much, and I hope you're enjoying your journey, and you're moving on to I think you're moving on to zodiac signs now, aren't you? Okay, thanks. Bye.